So my name is Doug Kuzma, and with Blackbox, and I'm here today with Sandeep and Bob Antonelli. So we'll introduce, we'll have further introductions as we get into the presentation. But we want to thank you for having us today, and really appreciate everyone spending some time with us this morning to learn a little bit more about Blackbox and what we're doing in the IoT space. So thank you again, and really appreciate the opportunity.
So my name is Sandeep Rajhans. I work with Blackbox, as my colleagues are. My title is Director of Customer Delivery. However, I've been associated with ED and IoT for a long time now. I've attended so many sessions. This is the first time I'm presenting. It's good that that we get opportunity to talk about our solutions, what we do for the customers. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go through what Blackbox is, introduce ourselves, so that you know what we do. So in terms of our portfolio, we are an international company spread across 30+ countries. We have more than 5,000 active customers, and the main the business that company has is basically the services and the products. And my colleagues Doug and Bob are from the product side of the business. I'm from the services side of the business. But we do a lot of things in terms of and also the portfolio slide quickly. But we do products in terms of AV and IoT, which Doug and Bob will talk about. In terms of global presence, as you see, we are headquartered in Plano. So we used to be Irving, but we just moved to Plano, and we have our corporate headquarters in India as well. A lot of things we do out of these locations. Large presence in Latin America, especially Brazil and Mexico, as well as other part of the world. In terms of our portfolio, the connected buildings, which Doug and Bob will talk about, is something which we do. We do structured cabling, we do audio-visual solutions, we do digital workplace, customer experience, unified communication, 5G, and on-go. So we just recently tied up with Nokia for the on-go solution. So we do a lot of those rollouts. We do DAS rollouts for enterprise customers. We do data center buildings, data center management, data center cabling, and of course the enterprise networking. So we have partnerships with multiple companies, as you see, right, everywhere, right? And everybody says they are partners, but we do a lot of work with these companies in terms of our solutions and services. So that's basically what Blackbox is. I'll hand it over to Doug, who will talk about the Technology Product Solution Group, which is the TPS group, which is the product group in the company.
Thanks, Sandeep. Appreciate it. So, as Sandeep said, my name is Doug Kuzma, and I'm the VP of Product Management and Solutions for Blackbox, the Technology Product Solutions business or business unit of Blackbox. And as Sandeep said, Blackbox is really an IT solutions provider of cutting-edge technology, as well as world-class consulting and managed services services that we offer globally across the world. We operate in nearly every major market globally, and we operate across 6 continents. So, and with a very diverse client and customer base that crosses over between small business, SMBs, as well as large enterprises, and most federal governments and state and local governments in both the U.S. and Europe. Just a bit about technology, right? So I think everyone in this room is acutely aware that we live in a technology-driven world, right? And it really has redefined the way that we go to business, the way we operate our business, and the way that we try to make it more customer-oriented and customer-focused. In some of these markets you see here, the 6 on the side, there's a lot of B's there, right? So this is where Blackbox operates in these 6 markets, and these 6 markets are continuing to evolve very quickly. And as we look ahead into the future, the technology continues to be extremely disruptive, right? We want to drive that disruption in these markets. And with the growth, as you can see there in those different markets, it presents great opportunities for all of us in this room. Black Box, and well as all of you and all of your companies, wonderful opportunities to capture some of this market and really drive success for your individual businesses. Just to dive a little bit more into TPS and what TPS does as a business. As Sandeep said, he's from the services side. So they're offering the consulting business, the consulting services, the managed services. TPS, we are what you may, if anyone's familiar with I'll say the original Black Box, right? So you're probably familiar with the old catalog, right? So we were very famous for this big catalog, phone book size catalog that had tens of thousands of SKUs. Well, we still do have thousands of SKUs, although it's a major initiative to bring that down and continue to whittle down that SKUs, to move away from, and that's what we've been doing. We've been migrating away from this catalog business and away from this category of products, right? And we've traditionally operated and offered 6 different types of products, right? So cable, KVM, AV, IoT, and infrastructure type products. Mainly everything that an IT department would need. As we've been moving and in this journey, moving away from that catalog business, we've been focusing more on solutions. And the solutions are really focused on 2 different areas, on AV as well as IoT. And the AV side of our business, of TPS, is further broken down into what we call switching and visualization, right? So switching is a fancy name for KVM, right? So because most people don't know what KVM stands for. So when we look at switching then is further broken down into what we call desktop KVM and enterprise KVM, or high density type matrix switching, right? And then on the visualization side, that is more of your traditional Pro AV products, like what you have in this room here, right? So whether it be distribution, so AV over IP, or video walls, digital signage, those types of solutions. On the, well, then to cover that from a management perspective, we have software solutions for management and control across the AV side of that portfolio. On the IoT side, so that's broken up into what we call connected buildings, smart buildings, as most of you are very familiar with, and then what we call telemetry and positioning. So fixed assets versus mobile and nomadic type assets, right? So, and again, both of those, as you're probably well aware, break down into sensors, so endpoint devices, and then the connectivity devices, which are the gateways. Okay, different types of gateways, different types of sensors, but essentially the same type of categories. And then across the IoT part of that portfolio, IoT analytics and visualization platform, also offering this predictive and prescriptive type analytics. Okay, so I think that's very important. I mean, it's really not about the sensors. It's about how do you take all this data and make it into information that the client and customer can find useful to their business, help them operate more efficiently, safely, et cetera, right? Beneath that, there's a connectivity layer. And this connectivity layer is a group of different products that are both passive and active type products. So these are networking products. These are interconnect products that are like cabling type products. So we have Ethernet switches, media converters, Ethernet extenders, a series of other types of networking products. And then on the cable sides, we have twisted pair cable, as well as fiber connectivity products, active optical cables, those types of things. Okay. So that is the glue that holds together each of the 2 sides of these solution pillars. And then the foundation, which really supports it's one of the, most important parts is the services and the professional services, and how we're able to really offer not only pre-sales, but also post-sale support, as well as pre-configuration. So we'll offer pre-configuration services for our solutions. So working with our channel partners, we can then ensure that the product arrives at the destination pre-configured to the extent that it can for the client. Okay. So that's in a nutshell, very quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just want to try to articulate where TPS from a solutions perspective is currently focused today. We don't have the catalog, but we still have a lot of those products that you might have originally known us for, right, in the past. So what do we do with this portfolio? Well, we really operate and offer solutions in 3 different areas. Again, it's AV switching and extension. So whether it be KVM or we're talking about AV distribution in a room like this, digital signage like you saw in the office or in the building and coming in. That's more so in the center one with the visualization piece with video walls and digital signage. And then of course the IoT side, right? So whether it be remote monitoring, asset monitoring, the visualization, the analytics, okay? So these are the 3 different solution areas where we're taking that portfolio of different technology products and solutions and how we're applying those in different use cases. We spent a lot of time really taking a look at those very large markets that I mentioned earlier and identifying very specific segments and applications and use cases in these narrowly defined segments where we can really offer value, compelling value propositions for our clients. So those markets are huge. We can't be everything to everyone. What we really do is we try to zero in on specific applications. And we'll speak to a couple of those today as I turn the presentation over to Bob. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, our customers are far-reaching, all different types of customers. There's just some logos here that you might recognize. This is just a few of the I think thousands of logos that we have. And again, we cover about 85% of the Fortune 500. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a very strong presence in not only federal government, both in the U.S. and in Europe, but also state and local governments in the U.S. too. Okay. And then finally, just kind of toot our own horn for just a second from awards perspective. We take pride in technical leadership. We take pride in thought leadership in the industry. And we've managed to continue to do that through the pandemic years, even in 20 and 21, as you can see here on this slide. And then obviously this year too, we've been hard at that. So just wanted to mention that briefly. And, we'd love to partner. We'd love to work on projects together wherever we can collaborate in the space. There's different events and symposiums and events that I would like to further explore, especially from an IoT perspective. So possibly that's an area where we can also work together. Okay. So I will now turn it over to Bob, and he'll take us a little bit, talk about what we call AlertWorks and just a couple of the applications with AlertWorks. Okay. Thanks.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, who here has heard of Black Box before? Okay, we're done. No. So, I'm the IoT product manager. I've only been with Black Box for a short while, but it's been pretty exciting few months. And let's get into kind of what I'm going to cover. Talk about IoT, obviously, where we've been, some of the stuff that Black Box has done in the past, where we're headed, and then believe it or not, we've got some local activities here in the Texas area, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that we're actually implementing, and I hopefully you'll find those some pretty interesting things. I think the things you read about IoT, it's going to solve all the world's problems, right? Well, maybe not. As Doug mentioned, the breadth of IoT is huge. It's massive. People talk about all the billions and trillions of dollars that's available. Certainly, while we have a global reach, we're not that big a company. We're not big enough, and we don't have any intention to solve all the world's problems. But there's a lot of non-tech markets that I feel and we feel that need tech solutions. But with that, they need to be simple. And why do they need them? So really, the biggest thing is solving problems. Instead of people coming in, rushing in with technology and say, here's the technology you need, it's really more about what are the business problems you need to solve and what are they? And what we found and what I found is the biggest thing is eliminate waste and reduce downtime, save money, discover things that are happening that you wouldn't even be able to see or even know about, provide visibility in near real-time information. And one of the big things with IoT now is becoming much better is to be actually predictive and not reactive, right? And with that, make this solution simple. You know, there's nothing wrong with data scientists, but for a lot of IoT solutions and into the market that we're going into, and we're driving to first, if it's not simple, it's just not going to work for the end user. And really with that, you know, IoT and easy is an oxymoron. It shouldn't be, right? So what we're focusing on is ease of installation, ease of setup, and at the end of the day, ease of use, and provide people with information that they can really use. We've actually been in the business for several years doing a wired IoT device and solution. It continues to be, excuse me, continues to be a potential solution. It's not easy to install because it is wired. So there's a lot of wires that need to run. There are specific instances where it works really well, like in data centers, because there's already wires running. We have some very large data center installations with various flavors of this product. You know, but it's kind of limited in the modern capabilities. So what we've, and this is like a news flash because this actually hasn't been launched yet. This actually will be launched in a couple weeks. So we've got the Works wireless product and solution. It's all new. It's in-house developed by Black Box. There aren't a lot of things that have been in the past developed internally at Black Box. So this is really kind of groundbreaking for us in our engineering department and R&D. So it's our core software. And really what we're doing is focusing on that ease of installation, ease of setup, and ease of use. Let's see if I can get the whole screen to show up. So it's specifically done, we're really focusing on an SMB, SME market space. Low price, no rip and replace. If there's something in place, if there's a wired solution in place or another solution in place, this can integrate with it. You know, it's not taking some big expensive system and downsizing it to fit into somebody's needs. It's really market focused.
That's me. Don't worry about it.
You warned me about that.
Yes. It may happen once more before the meeting's
it's a
over.
bunch of pieces of parts that are cobbled together. And we've designed it to be very customizable to the customer's environment. If they need it, very scalable. If they want to add additional sensors, our pricing model, I think, works very, very well. It's not based on the number of sensors, the number of square feet. It's basically one price fits all. And, you know, we can modify thresholds. They can do it themselves. So we hope it's simple enough for them to use so that, you know, it's that ease of use once it's installed. Again, it's
what's the wireless technology?
LoRaWAN.
Oh,
So the technology, I'll go through a little bit of a feature list, but it's all based on LoRaWAN. So, and we've had some, we just actually did an install that we'll talk about locally. We're very pleased with the capabilities of LoRaWAN in a real environment, not in an engineering environment. Anyone else using LoRaWAN?
How big is that box?
Size of that. So it's yeah. That's it.
How is it powered?
PoE,
nice.
or direct, either way. Again, just some get rid of that. You know, lots of different applications, the full range of things that you would be doing either in an office environment, buildings, monitoring, temperature, whatever LoRaWAN sensor is out there, we can connect to it. So the full range. On this, it's kind of an eye chart, you know, but our wired solution, you know, had some capabilities, wasn't very easy to use. On the AW3000, which is our new offering, the wireless, you know, Don't need to go through them all, but there's a full suite of capabilities and features. And it's not going to be our last wireless product. We also have a few more that are going to be coming that are blurred out over there to the right. Those will be launched in the rest of the year with additional capabilities. So it's just, this chart's just to tell you, it's not one and done. We're growing a family of products. We're going to be adding capabilities and features as we move through 2023. And hopefully I'll be able to get them all done in 2023.
So I'm confused. So it's not just Zorro. Like you use-
Says LTE?
Yeah, yes.
I don't see Wi-Fi on there.
That may be down here. No, we can do Wi-Fi.
Wireless back in there.
And yeah, so we can tie into other possibly existing systems in office and building systems. But with that, where we're really focusing, again, I mentioned the SME market space. You know, my goal is to crawl, walk, run. This is a new product for us. We do have a presence with our wired product. So to go back into that market space, bring them new technologies with the wireless product. But we have had some success. You know, there's certainly manufacturing, buildings, and IT networks. But one area that we have a really nice footprint at the moment is in, which may interest everyone here, is in breweries. And these breweries would be small microbrews and tap rooms. So, you know, there's a lot going on with brewing, with fermentation, hot liquids, cold liquids, motors, pumps, you know, the whole works. And, you know, these guys might have, you know, if they have a tank go bad of beer, that might $30,000 or $40,000 down the drain, right? And they don't always have a big crew. There's not always somebody there monitoring temperatures. So, so we actually just did an install over here at Keller yesterday. So we're getting them up and running, and they'd probably be happy to see some of you guys show up and take a look at it. But so we really have a very strong focus on breweries, wineries, and distilleries right now, because it's all kind of the same. You know, one bad batch of something and they just lost a lot of money. So that's kind of the direction we're going, certainly buildings and connected smart buildings, and IT networks. We have a good footprint inside of data centers, some very large data centers. A lot of those data centers obviously don't want any wireless, but there is kind of a combination of wired and wireless in a lot of data centers. Oh, see if this runs. So I don't know if any of you heard of Shannon. They're you know, nice sized microbrew. They have about 4 fermenters going at once. We can attest they make great beer.
Can we go get free samples?
Yes, yeah.
After this?
We could probably accommodate that. You know, if we
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, just
A
right.
biological test of the temperature of the beer.
That's right.
That's
right.
Engineering.
You know, and all you have to do is
Yeah.
mention black box and IoT, and they probably can give you a little tour in the back and everything. So, very nice facility, not a very large facility, but you know, from a microbrew standpoint, they got a lot of moving parts, right? And it's an expensive business to run. You can, I mean, when you actually go inside and see one of these quote microbrews, it's a big environment, and they've spent a lot of money, you know, to make a small amount of beer. So, and they're not monitoring all the time. You know, they got some really nice systems, but you know, the boss goes home, the brewmaster goes home, and all they do when they go home is worry about what's happening back when they're making the beer. So yeah, so that's them. They're down in Keller.
And their hours are conveniently back one
I
side.
did kind of make that so people could see. And I'll have to tell Shannon, we got the message out to everybody. So with that, I'm actually gonna bring online
Monty?
my engineer, Monty. I think if he's there.
I am here. Good morning, everyone.
Awesome.
And Monty's gonna walk through our AW3000 kind of setup screens, how we make this work. And because if I tried to do it, I'd embarrass myself.
Well, just first off, I'll try to not talk too loudly. That sounds very loud.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
As mentioned earlier, the gateway is powered via PoE. You can also power it via a direct 3-amp USB-C power supply. So I'm going to gloss over that and the usual having to set up the network settings and focus on what you'll see when you first log into the gateway. So what we have on screen here is what we call the overview. Go back, Bob.
Good.
Sorry about that. So yeah, this is just the overview screen. It gives you the gateway ID, so we know what gateway we're dealing with. It gives you what regional setting the gateway is set up for. So there are different standards for different regions and different countries. So we do have to address that, and the gateways are set up appropriately. And we can also see the last RF activity on the gateway, and that's just a nice troubleshooter indicator, so we know when the gateway has communicated with any of the sensors. And you can go ahead and jump to the next screen, Bob. Next slide. What we see here, and a lot of these, I apologize, are kind of eye tests, but what we're looking at here is the neighborhood screen. We're able to see all of the sensors that are within range of the gateway. So if there are unjoined sensors, when you plug the gateway in, you will see those sensors here. If you power up a gateway, or I'm sorry, if you power a sensor up on your desktop while you're working with the gateway, you will see it appear here. This is where we can join the sensors. We're able to see several different specs about the sensors as far as the radio signal strength and that type of thing. We can see if the sensors are joined or if they are joining or if they're unjoined. We can see some of the other information associated with the sensor, like the app keys and that type of things. I'm sorry, the dev EUIs and app EUIs, allowing us to identify the sensors. Go ahead, Bob. Looks like we jumped over the joining of the sensors. When you do see a new sensor, it's as simple as pressing the join button and adding the app key, and the program does the rest. It will join the sensor based on just the inherent properties of LoRaWAN. It may take several minutes for the sensor to join the gateway, but once it does, it will rejoin if we lose power or anything like that. So once you have a sensor joined to the system, you're good to go. The next step would be creating a dashboard with these sensors. So all the sensors you saw listed there, we can see some basic information about them, but we're not really seeing the data. We can see that on a sensor screen, but what the customers usually expect is a nice dashboard. What we have here is a dashboard that's easily configurable by the customer. They can populate dashboards on their own, picking and choosing data points, but we also allow them, and what I'm going to show here is just an auto-populated dashboard. So you're able to choose various size from 12 what we call dash boxes, and just think of that as 12 cells on the screen, up to 144 of these dash boxes. That 144 may sound like a lot, but the reality is that you're able to resize these dash boxes. So even if you only have a few data points, the 144 option would give you a lot of options as far as how you would like to lay that dashboard out and what you would like to see on it. We can also add other things besides data points to the dashboard, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And we also have an Earth dashboard that allows you to locate your gateways on a world map. So if you have multiple gateways, you're able to then zoom in on that specific location just based on that one map. And next slide, Bob. And here we have a 48 dash box or cell dashboard. I chose the auto populate option. So all of the sensors we saw on the previous screen, basically I've grabbed all of their data points and populated this dashboard with those. If you don't want all of these various data points, it's easy enough to remove them. As I said, these can also be resized, moved around to different locations. So it's kind of nice in that regard. It gives you a lot of flexibility as to how you'd like to see the data, what's important to you. So go ahead and next slide, Bob. As I mentioned, they could be moved, deleted, expanded, shrunk, additional dash boxes. So what we're seeing here is just the basic auto-populated dashboards. We're also able to change, for example, we have some temperature readings here. We can change those temperature readings into graphs. We can look at them as text history, so we can see the temperature readings scrolling over time. We can add, like I said, additional information like clocks. We can add images, floor plans, and overlay information, sensor information over top of those. We can change the color of the background and the text in the dash boxes as well. And you can see some relay buttons there. We are able to activate and change relays through this interface as well. And next slide, Bob. And here's the screen I mentioned previously. This is the sensor screen. This screen will again show you all of the sensors that you have actually joined to the system at this point, and you can see the various data points coming from those sensors. Here we have some that are just temperature sensors. We can see the battery level as well as the temperature output, and then some options that we have with the sensors. One of the other things that's somewhat unique to this platform is the virtual sensors at the bottom of the screen. When Bob was talking about the ability to integrate with our wired platform, this is what he was referring to. It goes beyond that. The virtual sensors are, much more than just allowing us to connect to our wired platform. We're able to reach out to other devices via SNMP or other methods and gather data from those devices and bring it into this platform as well, even though they're not a LoRaWAN sensor or something like that. But we are able to go, we do have a very easy path to adding our wired sensor information into this platform. We just go and select the IP address, tell it which port we want to look at, and we're able to pull that data into this platform. So it gives us one aggregation point, as Bob may have mentioned, for all the various data that we have coming in, and we can then either present that in the local dashboard or the cloud platform, which we'll talk about in a moment. When I mentioned the different activities with the sensors, this is what I was referring to. So up to this point, we've talked about just bringing the sensors into the system and being able to see their data points. This is the logic of the system. So what we're doing here is setting thresholds. We're able to go in and look at this this specific data point and say, in this instance, it's a battery. Well, I would like to be warned if this battery goes below a certain voltage level so that I know I need to get somebody out to that location and change the battery so I'm not missing any data. So this is what allows me to do that. I'm able to set thresholds for, in this case, the voltage. This applies to temperature and other things as well. But you're able to set low and high thresholds so that you can then get different indicators based on those thresholds. For example, if it's a minor threshold, you're just starting to dip down. We've only decrease the battery voltage slightly. We may just have a local alarm, on the interface, the dashboard, just letting, changing the color of that dash box, letting the user know that they need to get out and change the battery. If it proceeds further and no one acts on that notification, we can then begin to send emails and escalate that further based on, what we're seeing as far as our data points. We also have some MQTT options here that may need to be enabled depending on what you're doing with the platform. But all of that's kind of in the system and, something we can talk about in the future as if we get that far. Next screen, Bob. This is some of the options that we can do as far as, so I mentioned, exceeding our thresholds on the last slide. On this slide, this gives us the actions that we can then do based on those thresholds. So if we exceed the threshold, we're able to send emails, send SNMP messages, play alarms. We actually have text to speech as well. It sounds a little bit, late 80s, but it's there. If you need to just hear somebody say that, a pump is off or a relay has been activated, it'll do the job. We can switch relays, so we are able to actively, do physical things through this interface, as well as some various other things as well. We can do arithmetic, we can do counting. So there's quite a bit of logic behind this. It's actually really deep, and it can get pretty extensive as far as what you're doing with the systems. You can have actions based on each other, so it can definitely get really deep as far as what you want to construct and the activities that you want to do with the gateway. Next slide, Bob. We do have different user privileges as well. So you can have somebody with full-blown admin privileges that has rights to go in and view and change everything in the system. But you can also set it up so that somebody can only go in and view the dashboards. For example, if you have as Bob mentioned, you have somebody coming in overnight to monitor the brewery. That person can just sit there, stare at the dashboard, and make sure all the temperatures are within range, and they're not getting any alerts, and they don't have to bother with anything behind the dashboard. So it gives you a lot of flexibility as to how you'd like to set up your users and what rights you'd like to give them as well. Next slide, Bob. And here's my eye test. This is the settings screen. A lot of this, you don't need to see too deeply here. You can imagine what's on there. The gateway ID, the network settings, time and date, that type of thing, as well as the processes that we have running on our gateway. It gives us visibility into what process is running if we're having any issues there, and to what firmware level we're at with all those processes. This gives us also the dashboard to go and set up SNMP, MQTT, all of those different configuration options. This is also where we will enable the licensing. So MQTT is a license, so we would enable that. You would see that enabled here. You're also given the ability to upload different sound files. I mentioned the alerts. You can load those yourself. If you want to hear some specific song when you get an over temperature alert, you can do that. You're also able to upload 2 and 3D files as well to bring onto the dashboard. And that might be the last slide, Bob. We can. Oh, you might have something. Go ahead.
So did you want to bring up the UI?
Yeah, if you'd like to, we can show that now. So what we saw here on the dashboard is the local interface. While you're able to do some alerting there and some basic logic, that's not the real platform. This is what we're referring to when we're talking about being able to do the predictive analytics. This is the cloud platform that allows us to go in. I have some simulated brewery data running right now. So please don't mind my temperatures are probably out of range. If you're into brewing beer, you're probably laughing at me, but I wanted to exaggerate the data a little bit so that we could see some of the different changes on the platform. Bob's scrolling through the graph right now. We can see, specific points in time where we were with the different, in this case, fermentation tanks. We can see the temperature changing in those fermentation tanks. We have the ability, and looks like this is shrunk down a little bit, Bob, the ability to go in and do overlays so we can see the brew process. So I grabbed an image here. We're able to go in and look at the different, what do I want to say, kettles and vats used in the process, and the chiller temperature, that type of thing. And we're actually able to even update based on the temperature. So you can see the colors changing as the temperature changes. So if we're going out of spec or out of those thresholds I mentioned, we can actually have that visible on the screen, and then we can act upon that via different notifications as well. We also have a floor plan there, so it's very similar to the brewery process. We can overlay data on the floor plan. You can see I have the IT cabinet in the office. I'm pulling the temperature from one of our wired sensors there. And if you scroll down, we have the temperature from the walk-in cooler. That's also a wired sensor. And then I have the different LoRaWAN sensors attached to the different brewing kettles and tanks, as well as the fermentation tanks, and we're pulling the temperature readings there. So it gives us a lot of flexibility here. Again, this is about as basic as it gets. We're just pulling data and visualizing it. And then from here, we can start doing predictive analytics. For example, one of the next steps is monitoring the pump. We can look at the current draw for that pump. We can look at vibration on that pump and determine if something might be going wrong with that pump. Is it drawing more power than it did in the past? Is there increased vibration there? Maybe somebody needs to go in from maintenance and take a look at that. Are we having trouble with valves? We can look at flow rates, we can look at CO2, we can look at the coolant temperature. So it gives us a lot of visibility into things going on in the process, as Bob mentioned, and allows us to either manually act on that or have some logic act on that. I did mention that we have the relays. So if we're going over temperature on a tank, we could trigger a relay to open a valve and allow the coolant to go around in that tank and bring that tank back down into the desired temperature range. So this is really the ultimate end game, is the overall management platform. I'll let Bob speak.
And with that, the real driver that a lot of these mid-market and small and medium businesses, they want to be able to see it on their iPhone.
Yep.
When the guy's laying in bed in the middle of the night, he wakes up in a panic and wants to know if his glycol pump is still running, because if that goes out, all the batches are dead, right? So it is, very viewable on an iPhone or mobile phone. So that was kind of a big thing that they constantly asked for. Get rid of that.
We have Monty, a couple questions.
Yeah, we have a few questions online, and yeah, go ahead, Ed.
All right, so one of the gentlemen, Leroy, asked, reference the LoRaWAN backhaul. Are you using your own custom LoRaWAN servers to the cloud platform, or are you utilizing another LoRaWAN provider? CNET, Helium, Things Industries, question mark.
Well,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob. Do you want to answer that, or?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay, so our LoRaWAN sensors are directly connected to the gateway, and then from the gateway, you're either viewing the local platform or you're going to our proprietary cloud server.
All right, does the product support LoRaWAN Class B or C?
That I need to check on. That's a great question. I need to check with the coder to confirm that.
Okay, last question. Do you offer a path for integrating customer supplied sensors?
Yes, and Bob can probably speak to this as well. We do have a list of certified sensors, as well as a generic payload encoder that's part of the gateway. So we should be able to talk to a wide variety of sensors. But if we do encounter any issues, we are able to dedicate some time and bring that sensor in via our programmer.
Yeah, in general, any D1 LoRaWAN sensor should be. If it's not already added, we can add it.
So you've got a template system, so you can device template.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask a follow-up question in terms of the integration. So do you allow other integrations for data ingress and egress? Like, for instance, can we point your system to an external MQTT device to share the data?
Yep.
And is there like a REST API, or are there other types of integration points to help consolidate data, both sending it and receiving it in your dashboards?
Monty might be able to answer that better.
We actually are working on the MQTT different variations, so there is some flexibility there. We do give you the ability to input, and this is actually the very newest version of the firmware. It's not even on the gateway we put in Shannon. But we are actually adding to that on a daily basis. I spent several hours on the phone yesterday actually working on that topic with the programmer. So that's kind of an ever-changing, I don't have a complete answer for you right now, but we do have a lot of flexibility there. So if you do have, let's say you're going to whichever cloud provider, we do have the ability for you to kind of tweak your payload and make sure that's compatible with your provider. Does that answer your question?
So for instance, you can send it to an AWS MQTT endpoint.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
Check.
Yeah. Awesome. Harry?
Yeah, this is Harry. I have two questions for you. The first one is there a maximum number of sensors that I can connect to this?
Good question.
So that depends.
Grouping,
That's always the answer.
So,
grouping and gateways.
so most of it depends on kind of the polling rate that you have on the sensors.
Okay.
You know, if you've got them, if all of them are coming every second or every minute,
Second.
you know, you could overwhelm it pretty quickly. So it varies. You know, could be tens, 50s, maybe up to 100 sensors, depending on the polling rate. So again, this is kind of targeted towards that mid-market, but we could have multiple gateways also.
So you're inferring bandwidth limitations to some degree.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm putting, for example, 100 indoor air quality sensors in a building.
Mhm.
And I'm pulling about every 15 minutes.
Yeah, so that,
Probably put one or two of these.
yeah, wouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
The second question, Monty, is are you following any specific language protocols like KSTAT or BRIC? Because when you get into the naming conventions on these dashboards,
Oh, yeah.
if we're not following a standard, it's a nightmare after 10 sensors.
I couldn't answer. We can get you. I don't know if Monty has any information on that.
That's something I need to look into as well. We do identify the sensors with our own identification methodology, but I'm not sure really how well that plays with other platforms.
And that's kind of what I figured you were doing, because that's what everybody does. And folks, I got to tell you, that's going to be the #1 problem for IoT going forward, because if we don't get to a consistent naming convention, we got every engineer in the world making these devices out there,
And
I can't put together that single pane of glass.
Sure.
and the follow-up to that, the other thing that I see very problematic is the grouping and multi-tenancy,
Exactly.
especially when we get into somebody that has multiple properties or multiple floors or whatever. I've seen that be very problematic as well. It's the naming, grouping, and the tenancy, especially when, like you and I kind of do when we're dealing with lots of different customers on a single SaaS backend. It gets to be very
In North
problematic.
America, I've been pushing KSTAT as a standard.
Yeah.
For Europe, I've been pushing BRIC.
Okay.
They're different, but they're similar. There's others out there, but if we can get to one of those conventions.
It's a big
it
problem,
would be
big problem.
huge. If more and more data, think about the massive amounts of data we're gonna have, we can't read it and identify.
Well, and group it and multi-tenant it and on top of that too, yeah.
All right.
Great. No, that's fantastic.
My other pitch I always do is the left lane is for passing.
Thank you.
That's my two consistent pitches.
Discussion about that yesterday, yeah.
And I wouldn't mind putting that on my next slide. Before everyone leaves, right?
So a question.
Yeah.
I'm Steve, by the way. I know just enough to be dangerous in this area. So, you know, why would the customer select this system over, like, say, a lightweight SCADA system? What? I know nothing about, you know, that type of manufacturing, but
If you look at this example, three
Mhm.
SCADA systems overbuilt for a customer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It's
that's,
got a low cost solution. Somebody that size. So
I mean,
I think that's probably.
SMB, SME space,
yeah,
it's
and,
way
you know, there's-
overkill.
There's a lot, obviously, there's Siemens systems, there's, you know, Johnson Control Systems, there's a whole bunch of guys out there that have big systems.
Right.
That they're gonna try and sell to somebody and, like I said earlier, in the slide, downsize it and cobble it together, but it's still gonna be expensive.
And then they're going to sell, you know, if it's like Siemens, they're going to try to sell you their entire stack, which
Right.
is,
Right.
of course, extraordinarily expensive.
This
right?
is really, you know, feature built really for that market space. Now, we get, like you saw on my table, there's other ones that we're gonna be coming out with that we're gonna drive up market. But, you know, we're going to crawl, walk, and run. And that's kind of our plan.
Restaurant retail franchise. It's very difficult to do at your studios. Yeah.
Are most of the sensors battery powered, or are they on like direct current?
Most of the wireless are battery powered, but they are powered wireless ones also. You know, the beauty of the battery ones are we can stick them anywhere.
5 to 10 year life on a lot of them.
Right.
Yeah.
What does a gateway look like, and how does it connect to the internet of the cloud?
Gateway, I have one picture up there. It's about the size of that, about 10 times that big.
The antenna is often bigger than longer than the
yeah.
box.
When, you know, we had great pictures of this gateway until they put the antenna on it, then I couldn't fit it in the presentation. Really screwed up all the presentations.
Steve? Yeah, have you guys ever worked with Sparkplug B and specifically to normalize data models? Anybody here using that? Okay. Just curious. Sparkplug B, it's MQTT. It's like essentially a plugin.
Oh, it's a plug-in. So, okay.
I have to look into it. We're using MQTT quite a bit.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
A lot of people are using Mosquito
Yeah.
as the MQTT server. It's probably a
Right.
plug-in on that, right?
And so,
Yeah.
And so you have Sparkplug B that provides a way to normalize that data, you know, and with tags and what have you. And if you're then pushing all of that into a unified namespace, you know, to do additional processing, makes life a lot easier.
I think we're all going to Google it right now. Yeah. Most of us have used MQTT though. Yeah. So.
You do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So by the way, my name is Tesha. So I work in the defense space. Do have a question. I kind of feel that more of the systems is more reactive, just the problems. Is your systems are using any kind of like AI solutions or something like that to make it more proactive rather than a reactive?
Yes. So not the base system, but we saw that other user interface that had the temperature gauges and all that.
Mhm.
That system does actually connect. We'll be using an AI platform, an existing platform.
How cost effective are they at this stage?
Very. I mean, most of the stuff, for example, on Azure is directly available. It's, you know.
So your integration with Azure and AWS.
Yeah.
Cool.
You can turn up SageMaker on AWS.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but you can do it in a couple hours.
Yeah, it's all pretty quick as long as you got enough data and enough parameters. It actually is pretty
That
good.
makes sense.
And a person bringing their own AI platform.
Don't know.
But you can externally export the data out, right?
Yeah.
So if you do MQTT out to AWS, then it's easy to ingest from there.
Then I have a cloud.
Correct.
If you like a
Correct.
real-time, I want real-time AI.
Oh, okay.
I want to put, a Meg
Oh,
software on your gateway, right?
connect locally to the gateway. Possibly.
So is that a real time?
Near real time, but
Also can deploy the models in the near real time. This is possible to do.
Yeah. you'd need a local server on the
Yeah.
Exactly.
on your
You have
local
your
Ethernet.
in-house thing,
Yep.
you'll
Yeah.
be able to do that.
Should be able to do that.
Even with AWS, you still can do that. Too.
It's bandwidth and
Yeah.
intensive.
Kind of.
But you're talking about plugging in locally on the local LAN.
I'm talking about putting it on the device. Do I get?
The only thing that I've ever seen work is TensorFlow Lite on a lot of these edge devices, and it's still pretty new. I was testing. Yeah, there's a few, but they're all relatively new. Like I was looking at updates on TensorFlow Lite libraries very recently, and some of it's not functional or not useful at the moment.
There's not enough capacity or capability in the gateway to actually put it in the gateway.
There might be on these light models.
Yeah, it could be.
Got less than the Meg.
We'd have to look at it though.
It's very, very cutting edge stuff. Very cutting edge.
So, in other words, Everybody knows the helium LoRaWAN gateway was built really for that.
It's working on like little ESP 32 microcontrollers right now fairly well, actually. So it's doable. But it's paint's very wet on that, but it's doable. Yeah.
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 You have a preferred sensor ecosystem.
Preferred sensor what?
Ecosystem. Like guys like Lebellion that have created an entire catalog of sensors for LoRaWAN. Right? As
No
opposed
preference.
to-
No preference.
Okay.
No preference.
Like the brewery example, who's sensor.
So we've got Netbox and Dragino.
Oh, I've released a lot of the Draginos. Yeah.
All right, a little bit more, we have the ability to reach in and do buildings, industrial data centers, connected buildings, again, wireless. Why buildings? Because there's a lot of stuff you can do in buildings, right? A lot of things people are looking for. Energy, users, people in the building, utilities, etc. So we actually have an office here in Plano, and we will be outfitting, and it's a new building, new office. We just moved into it a little while ago, and we will be filling that space with IoT devices, shared spaces, server room, break room, all that. More of a, eat your own dog food. Well, if we got our own building, why aren't you using your own stuff in your own building, right? So, so we'll be outfitting that. We'll be getting that built up probably first quarter this year. And you'd be all welcome to come and take a look at it, see what we're doing there with our own stuff and other people's. Again, it's not a point product, it's a solution. Again, people can bring in their own sensors. It's turnkey, basically all in the box. Easy to use. It's an open system, not restricted to proprietary sensors. It is an open database that's in there, and scalable to grow as the businesses grow. So that's kind of our driver. So that's where we're at. Anyone else?
Awesome, guys. Let's give them a
Really good.